Evening all, welcome to Tactics and Dust actually. We're going to talk today about dropships. I think it's one of these things again. I know I'm kind of doing a lot of it lately, but let me show you why. And I think this is something to sort of show you that dropships actually have a tangible, viable part in every team. And I know we've kind of covered this before, but this is a different concept. This is a distraction. Think of dropships as completely distracting the enemy. So here we go. We've just spawned in, and the horrible enemies are running to the point with in mind no AV. They're just running with general infantry fits, and that's generally. I mean, think about it. When you spawn in, the first thing you do is you run with probably a running fit or something like that. Spawn pads, maybe something like that. You certainly don't run with AV because I mean you don't know if there's going to be any AV in the map, and you probably don't spawn in with prototype. Well, maybe you do, but it would be some form of kind of setting up fit. Certainly not your blap fit, which is what I would call your fighty fit. And that's kind of an interesting one because certainly dropships, what they do is what we have done here is we have just repelled the first initial pulse of enemies, and so what they are now doing is they are seeing that there's two dropships here, and this is what they will now have to make a call on, is how do they tackle this. So half of their team comes back in AV fits, forward guns and swarm launchers, and that's rather interesting because that means that our squad are very aware of this. That's what we actually want them to do. So we've got very high damage hit point buffer fits here. This is really just, and we're using the tactics just to kind of really keep the damage on us. And all we had to do, it's not about killing people in the dropship, it's literally about making them I guess keep us in their sights. So obviously we don't want to lose the dropships, but we do want them to keep shooting at us. We don't want them to go and refit. And this is surprisingly effective because our infantry now obviously are fit to do anti-infantry. So they're in their blap fits, blap. And don't ask me to spell that because I probably can't, but it's literally that's the premise here. And it's amazing how much this works because look, we have like a fanatical group of their team trying to kill us, and yeah, we do take damage, but it's all about then evasion. So keeping up this kind of method of evasion stroke focus on you is incredibly powerful because in that little socket villagey thing down there, what's happening is our troops are pushing forward and actually kind of doing quite well because they have fit the majority of AV, which is again very powerful. I hope you see this kind of tactic because it's very difficult to kind of show you it from one point of view, but from a multiple point of view we certainly could maybe try that. But as you can see, it's just about making them get a bit annoyed at you, and really that then keeps them focused on you, and then the infantry follow up. And so again, to be clear, we started at the bridge, we've now pushed them back to their front socket, and you see we've got tanks and dropships, we've also got infantry as well, pushing them further back. And this battle is kind of becoming more of an easy one for us to win because so many of their team are fit with AV. And this becomes, and again, I know this is obvious, but it's almost as if it's like the unspoken obviousness of the situation, is that when you switch your opponent's majority of their firepower to AV, they have pretty much lost the battle unless they can recover it very quickly. So having two dropships and a tank pretty much sitting here just soaking up damage, getting the kills when they can, but really just keeping their focus is amazingly useful because what commonly happens is they just don't have enough infantry to deal with the infantry on our side. So 3 people tie up maybe 8. So hopefully you see that. It's a numbers game at the end of the day, isn't it? And I'm always quite surprised at how effective this strategy is. So, from what we can tell here, there's 2 forge gunners, there's at least 3 swarmers, and there's at least 2 rail gunners in the distance as well. So that's 7 odd people that in theory are giving no value to their team whatsoever against 3 people, 2 dropships and a tank. And it's an interesting concept. I hope you see it. What I find generally quite amazing to me, just because of the way that things generally go, is that people don't really... Oh, we've lost a dropship there. That's not good. But generally, people don't really see that there is a higher order of thought going on in most matches. They think it's just emergent strategies, but it's not. It is a real case of, right, if we're in dropships, if we're in tanks, then the majority of the team and the blueberries on our team are free to pretty much go and wipe out all of the AV that faces us. Now, I find this probably because particularly when you've got Evolution 7 and myself in the air, also with Judge as well, that those are quite, let's say, not to be, not to be an arrogant arse with this, but we generally get known. People seem to kind of know that what we're up to. So we find, look at this, look at that. Half of their team is on that ridge now. They've given up, we've won. But that's the point. So half of their team know that we're going to come in with vehicles, tanks, dropships, etc. And I think they realize that they've got a hell of a match ahead of them to kind of get us at the sky. Now, let's say that they ignore this tactic completely. Let's say they just continue on foot and continue to mull around the point, and that's really where they would lose again, because having that ability to completely I guess overwhelm the enemy is what we would then do, because obviously having tanks from medium to short range and then the dropships hovering above, it becomes a slaughter. It really does. So we kind of don't give our enemies much option to combat us. They either have to completely drop us out the air, which has never happened yet. We've always had, we lose dropships, yeah, but we lose tanks, but we always come back. It sometimes happens that we have crap blueberries, and then in general we don't achieve this tactic. But in essence, this is what I think us and many teams do. It really is about being a kind of obnoxious enough in the vehicles to warrant half their team moving to AV, and then having the kind of gumption to survive that. And if you can do that, then you can really draw some quite interesting wins from quite honestly better teams. I mean, this team we're facing here, some good names, some good people, and we only just kind of bamboozle them, and that's the right word. We bamboozle them, because we're kind of playing a bit of a game against them. We are forcing them. We're kind of saying, come at us, bro, come on, here's my dropship, kill it. And they then get kind of the red mist, and then what they do is they then sit there with forge guns and swarm launchers, ignoring the match, ignoring other mercs around them, and just literally getting tunnel vision and focusing on killing our stuff. And I find this a fascinating tactic to a degree, because I think it also gives quite an amusing game as well, because I have this real kind of masochistic nature with dropships where that I get shot down a lot. I mean, don't get me wrong, it always makes me laugh when people see footage and think that is how every match is. Far from it. I mean, I can lose up to 3 dropships a match, and then that's a 1.5 million ISK loss. That's like losing what, 6 tanks. So you see the the ISK investment is being put in here. But there are, that's I don't know, if I lose a dropship every other match maybe, so I just about maybe break even, but even then probably not. So you see what I mean? It's about it probably is 0. It's probably just a little bit under 0 maybe, but that is the choice that I make with it. So this is the tactic. But there we go. An interesting one, I think you'll agree, and I think what you can find yourself doing in most times is calling in vehicles, deliberately making the enemy team switch to AV. If they are uncoordinated and not very careful with it, what happens is all of a sudden, out of the 16 mercs, 10 of them are in AV, and then they can get overwhelmed with a good infantry push. Because quite frankly, swarm launchers and forge guns will get completely stomped by everything else. So there we go. Interesting one. I find there is a lot of higher thought process that goes on in this game, and I think those of you who, those of you who have switched on to the game will know exactly what this is all about. And it's all about how can you make your enemy change in some way or another. What can you do to make them do something different? And most of the times it is literally just with what you throw at them. So there we go. Hope you enjoyed that. See you next time.